get to be a certain age, How are you? Good morning, everyone. Thank you. Yes, still good morning for 7 more minutes. I think we'll try to get started so we can leave as much time for questions as possible. We did not print agendas because most of this is pretty cut and dry, and we'll kind of move along. Feel free to ask questions as we go, but there will definitely be ample time at the end for questions. Frank is going to open us up in prayer.
Let's pray together. Oh God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come. Lord, it seems really appropriate that today is Pentecost, and we just want to tell you that we really rely on the Holy Spirit to be with us this morning. We're really confident that He will be here, and we see that you are leading us together. You've been leading us for 3 or 4 years now in different ways. We love each other, we love you, and we commit this time together. Thank you for using us here on this corner, and we look forward to seeing how that's going to continue. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. I also just want to say a big thank you to all of our both councils, boards. We have put in a lot of prayer and time and energy into not only the documents that we sent out this week, largely written by Ralph, so we really are grateful for Ralph's time in making a lot of that happen for us, and then everybody on the boards has really taken a lot of time to do feedback and devote time to prayer to continue, just discerning what the Lord has for us as we potentially become one. So I'm really grateful for you all being here today and for this time to have conversation, but also very grateful for all the board members for everything that they have spent time on. So Mark is going to open us up with a few remarks.
Becky and I had the chance to go see my parents this weekend, just a very quick trip to Spokane. But we got there, and it was their 49th anniversary. Got to celebrate with them, got to hear, they took some time to kind of tell the story of how they met. And I was like, that's actually what I'm doing here. I'm going to tell the love story of Sanctuary United. That's where we're going to start. And it goes back to, I got to know Mike Regan, who was serving as pastor at United quite a few years ago. And we were friends, we had kind of helped to plant a church that was running this preschool up in the Crown Hill neighborhood behind Dick's at the time. And that church was looking for a new space, and they couldn't bring the preschool with them. Most of the kids at the preschool were sanctuary kids anyways. And Summer got a call from their pastor saying, we can't do the preschool anymore. Do you guys want it? And Summer said, yes. We want it, and we want Glenn. Yes.
I wanted one, and I said, we'll take the preschool.
We'll take the preschool. But we don't have a space for it. Well, Mike, in one of our conversations, had said, hey, United really desires to be hospitable with their space. They've put a lot of effort into reworking some of the space to be friendly for kids. If you guys need a space for kids for any reason, come talk to me. I said, how about a preschool that's most every day in your space? And long story short, United was incredibly hospitable with their space. We found a home for PAP, where it's been running for 9 years. Is that right? Is the math right on that? 2016. Fall of 2016 is when we started PAP. So that's the beginning. That's our origin story. It's the preschool moving in here, United expressing incredible hospitality to us and blessing families, not only in our church, but in this neighborhood through the ministry of preschool. 2019, we moved our office space in here as their office space became available. 2020, there's this thing called COVID. We all kind of did our thing online for a while. 2021, when we came back to in-person worship for Sanctuary, instead of coming back to Taproot Theater where we had been, we landed here because everything else was here. Preschool, and offices, and our sense, this was from the very beginning, conversations with Mike, conversations with Michelle Wicks when she was here, and even Dennis, the interim pastor. There was this lingering curiosity about why God had brought us together. Just the beginnings of it were just a wondering, is there more to this relationship than landlord and tenant? And in 2022, United joined Sanctuary's service, and we started meeting in worship together in the fall of 2022, almost 3 years ago. If you can believe that, right? And in the midst of all of this, we've continued to ask that question. Is there more to this relationship than just landlord-tenant? And the increasing sense among those of us who are asking that question, as the elders started to ask that question together, the growing sense is that yes, there's more to this relationship than just landlord and tenant. And as the elders from both churches have now, over the last couple of years, really tried to dig specifically into that question, we've used this framework of are we better together? And this comes to us from a book that was recommended on church mergers called Better Together. That's been a really helpful guide for us. We also engaged the help of this church, and in particular this pastor at this church down in Willamette, Oregon, Willamette Christian Church, that has helped a lot of churches merge. They rely on the same book that we've been using, and Chris Yargo, came up and helped us ask that question. Helped us do a lot of things, but fundamentally, just asking that question. Do we really believe that God is leading us together and that we're better together? In all of the ways that you would consider what a church should be about, are we better together in these ways? In discipling, in witness to the church, in growing in community, growing in our own faith. Even in practical matters such as financial stability and things like that, are we better together? And the resounding, consistent answer has been, yes, we believe we are better together. Here's a little side note. There are certain ways in which we are already existing as one church, most significantly in the worshiping life of our community, but increasingly in other ways. We have folks from both churches that are participating in various Bible studies and community groups. When we're talking about block parties this summer, we're all doing that together. There's not really a distinction between churches. And so there's a lot of ways in which we are already living as one church. And increasingly, as we've talked about where we're at in this process, and I mentioned this in the email, I think what we're seeking to do is to formalize what is experientially already true. We're seeking to give the supporting documents and the structure, we're seeking to align those things with how we're living, which is functionally as one church. There's a value that both of our churches shares that I love that it's a high value. I've mentioned it already. It's hospitality. That language, I've heard United folks talk about the value of hospitality. That's been a significant word for Sanctuary, going back to the beginning when we launched with a coffee shop that served green bean, and hospitality. Radical Christ-centered hospitality was this phrase that was this guiding, kind of a guide word, watchword for us. And I love that, and that's one of those areas that gives me a lot of hope and confidence as we move forward, that we're going to be moving in the same direction. The challenge is that as things are right now, we're actually not a very hospitable place. We're welcoming. New people that come in are welcomed. You're great at warmth and engaging people in conversation. But as someone seeks to dive deeper into the life of the church here, there start to be questions of, well, which church? If they want to start giving, which church should they give to? If they want to become members, which church should they become members of? Which group of elders should they go to if they have something to address the elders? And in that sense, we're a confusing church to visit and to seek to become a part of. And so I know that the heart that we all have is for hospitality, and I think that's one of those motivating factors that I think has been driving this conversation that the elders have been having now for quite some time. Okay. That's the story. So we out of the elder groups, we put together a merger team that's been meeting, and the work of the merger team is reflected in these 3 documents. I have a few printed here. I don't want to hand them out now because you'll get lost in them and we'll lose you in the conversation. But if you would prefer to have hard copies rather than what's in the email, you can come get these after the meeting. Quick overview of the work of the merger team reflected in these documents. We have bylaws and articles of incorporation, which are two different documents that are articulating the state of Washington needs those documents in order for us to be a legal nonprofit entity, and they give some guidance to how we think this new church, neither Sanctuary nor United, but this new thing will function. So that's what those are. Then there's this third document that comes out of this book that we were looking at, Better Together. There was a checklist near the back of the book, 25 issues to work through as you consider merging. And the primary goal of working through that checklist was to look at all these areas of what it is to be a church, right? It's from how you're structured to cultural values in your church, to ministries, to budget, all of those things. And the first step is just noticing how close or how far apart are you in each of these areas. And the short answer to that question as we work through them is that we are not meaningfully far apart in any of these 25 areas. As we worked through it, we started to kind of take that next step, which was beginning to give language to how we thought this new combined church, this new merged church, might live into in each of these 25 areas. So that's what the third document is. There's going to be a couple of highlights that other folks are going to give before we turn it over to Q&A. The last thing that I have on my agenda to share about is the question of denominations. This question would have been answered differently about a year and a half ago. As we had these conversations amongst our elder boards, there was a year and a half ago, the answer would have been that United would be joining Sanctuary, and together would be a Christian Reformed church, and continue on as with the connections that Sanctuary's had there with that denomination. Sanctuary, as most of you, I believe, are aware, we have started the process for disaffiliation from the Christian Reformed Church. That's a whole other conversation that I'm just going to put to the side. That's a process that we have begun for a number of reasons. And in the course of conversation, we have, my wife is ordained as a pastor through Sanctuary, and that wouldn't be possible with the E-Free denomination. So how we see this playing out, and this is articulated in at least in the email, and we'll talk a little more about it. But we see both churches relinquishing their denominational connection, joining together as one church that would be, at that time, an independent church. But we have a sense that being connected to something larger than ourselves is good. The accountability, the resources, the colleagues, that all of that is valuable. And so after we would merge as one church, there would be a committee of folks, most likely representing both traditions, that would start to look and discern a new denominational home for the new church. There's probably a ton more that I could say there, but I'm going to, for the sake of time, stop and give it over to Rob. Thanks for listening to our love story.
Thank you, Mark.
You should have sang Taylor Swift, okay?
I spent almost 10 years in the Army Corps of Engineers districts and presiding over dozens of public meetings. And one measure of how things would go was how many government people were there versus how many members of the public. And I remember one meeting in Seattle, there were 6 of us from the government, and 1 poor public. We dominated it. But I appreciate all of you showing up, and I really invite your interest and attention to what we're seeking to do, because it's important. I think together we have tremendous potential as a merged congregation, but we need to do it right. I have 2 topics to talk about, the first of which is government. Mark alluded, there's 2 things that you go through in this process as guided by Better Together. But the first is to assess the as-is in the 2 congregations who plan to come together. And then the next step is to figure out, all right, and what should be. If you look at the bylaws documents, and both Sanctuary and United Church have bylaws documents. The Sanctuary one is dominated by the language about the supremacy of the council, and how the council has the ultimate authority. Whereas the United one talks more about the congregation. And if you're familiar with the history of the United Church, there was a period of time, ended about 25 years ago, where it truly was congregational governance in the sense that every last question was brought before the congregation and voted on. We moved away from that some time ago. In practice, in both churches, we perceive that it's quite similar in that the council is attentive to the concerns and the interests and the questions of the congregation, but the council exercises, or elders as we term it in the United, exercises the initiative to get things going. But then, in many critical questions, the congregation takes a vote. So in the bylaws that we're proposing to you, that's pretty much what we've got. The council exercises authority and leadership on behalf of the congregation, but certain issues such as calling a pastor, electing elders, other questions need to be brought to congregational vote. And there's some other provisions in there about members of the congregation being able to call a meeting and so on. There are a lot of details in these things. I think details yet to be finalized. I don't believe this is going to be word for word what we come with, but I urge you to dig into it. Things like how do you become a member, and who should be a member, and other details. It's not that we can never change it. We'd like to get it right the first time around. I think that's enough on governance. But again, I invite your detailed attention to it and raise things. You know, when people are invited to raise objections, sometimes folks say, well, if I say that, they'll just say no. Well, yeah, we might, but then again, we might not. Please bring it up. Even if it's a concern to you, raise it. And then we will consult amongst ourselves and pray on it and try and figure out what's the best course of action. Okay, so the next topic that I'm going to talk about is values. And, well, the most important expression of our values is a statement of faith that's in the Articles of Incorporation. We believe in the saving sacrifice of Jesus and an omnipotent God and the value of Scripture and those spiritual things that do and should guide our lives. But when I say values, I also mean some more topical questions that sadly have and are dividing churches all over the world. Yes, we're hospitable. We love children. We probably love animals too. But there's more difficult questions of human sexuality, of, I think this was largely resolved in most churches, but the role of women in churches, political questions about whether abortion should be legal, or all kinds of things. At first, I tried to call out a couple of these things and identify a position that I thought was right, but the others on the merger team corrected me and observed there really are a range of values amongst all of us on these questions. We don't all agree. Another piece is that we haven't been called specifically to address these things, and we're not going to chase after them unless we have to. So what we're recognizing is that on these sorts of questions, there are a range of values, and what we commit to is that if they should come up, we're going to address them in mercy and in love and in prayer to try and work them out in a way sort of like in the sermon, that is driven by concern for others and not by some kind of legalistic idea. It will be an element of our decision of what denomination to join, because we're going to look for somebody who, in general, sees these questions a way that's similar to us. So, again, we recognize there's a range. Rather than assert the answers to these things, we're committing to a process, an attitude, an approach that we think is right as we go
I have two things that I'm going to call out, one of which is name. If you, as you're going through these documents, we have used Crown Hill Church, sorry. We've used Crown Hill Church as a placeholder. The joint elder boards have and will continue to decide and come to you guys with some more information. We want input on a name from our congregations, but we haven't addressed that exact process yet. So I just want to call that out. We are not assuming it will be Crown Hill Church. We are going to be open to some suggestions, and then we'll come up with a process for that more in the fall, and we'll bring that to the congregation at that point in time. So the next thing I'm going to talk about a little bit, I know this is small, and I apologize, but I will, and I can't even read it right there, so I'm going to look at it on my phone for a second. I just want to address the timeline a little bit. So it's June. That's crazy. I don't really know how that happened. And we've now shared the memorandum of understanding with everyone. Our goal is that we would take this summer to, as Ralph mentioned, please read these. Please come to any of the elders. I believe we're going to try to have some office hours, but feel free to email us and set up a time to meet if you have questions. We want to talk to you about these. We want to hear your thoughts. Any of our elders do, and then we may not have an answer for you at the time, just like when I open up for questions after this, we might not have an answer. But what we're committed to is that the elder boards will come back together. We will we'll discuss, we'll pray about it, and then we can come back to you with an answer. So that is the summer. We recognize that a lot of people will be in and out this summer, including both chairs of the elder board. And so fall comes down. Oh, that was kind of both churches. Sorry, I was going to mention that. Also in June, Sanctuary will take its first congregational vote to start our disaffiliation process. Our process involves 2 votes of the congregation. So our first one will be at our congregational meeting at the end of the month. Okay, so then we're moving forward to summer. So fall gets here way too fast. Now I have to actually look at something. Okay. So then, in the fall, each congregation will vote to merge into one church. That vote is affirmative. Then we will complete all of the merger details, and the goal there would be to complete our merger before the end of the year. So that's all of the legal details. We will have also then both, I'm skipping ahead, sorry. So both churches will vote to merge. Then the rest of the year will be spent doing the details of completing the merger. Sanctuary will have its second vote congregational vote to disaffiliate from the CRC. So that will, and then we will also complete our disaffiliation before the end of the year. At that time, United would do their congregational vote to merge with Sanctuary, and then inform the ESCA of the disaffiliation. So assuming that both churches decide, after spending time in prayer, reading these documents, talking with your elders, assuming we all come to the fall thinking and believing that we'll be better together, then we will complete all of the actionable items to become one church before the end of 2025. Then our hope for, at that time, the joint elder boards will come up with, start nominating for a denomination committee. And then 2026, the hope would be spent discerning a new denominational home for us both. Obviously, the details on that are yet to be discovered because that's where we're at. And then the hope would be that we would try to land in a denomination by the end of 2026. Okay, so this is also should be in the email as well, so you can read it a little bit bigger in the email. I would now like to open it up. Does anybody have any questions, comments? Bob?
Are there any programs or things that are particular to one church or the other that are going to be deleted, dropped out of the plan, or are we just merging everything together?
That's a great question.
plan initially is, no, that there's, partly this is related to budget. As we've looked at our budget, there's not a lot of overlap. Sanctuary doesn't have a building but budget line item. United doesn't have a pastor budget line item. We just take those combined and we have. So similarly with the programs, there's not a ton that either church is doing. And so for the initial time being, the idea is that we're committed to keeping things going. But then as a new church, there's going to be some discernment. And as we look at a budget, 2 years from now, we may discern that we need to put some resources here that require shifting some from here. But to begin with, we're going to continue on as is within both congregations.
For instance, missionaries.
Yeah.
We support other churches.
Yep, that would be, initially we are absolutely committed to continuing on in support of all the missionaries that United supports. We know there's a significant amount of support that United has for missionaries. We're committed to continuing that. As United does, there's always discernment. United discerns year over year that support, and so that rhythm would continue. But we want to continue that on.
And path will continue.
Yeah, provided we get enough kids. So if you know people who are preschool age who need a preschool, send them to that.
While I'm walking to Izzy, I just also want to call out that our plan for what we've proposed for elders at the moment is, so right now we have two elder boards, right? 5 and 5, and our proposal is that we would keep those 2 elder boards, so we would have 10 elders as this merged church for the first 6 months of the year. Sanctuary usually changes their elder rotation in January. We're proposing that we move that to the middle of the year, and you guys usually do it in April. So everybody would stay on, and then the new elder board would be discerning how many people should stay on, what that rotation looks like. But the 10 of us will act as the joint elder team for the first 6 months of this merged church, assuming that timeline works. So.
Can you speak a little bit more to how governance will work throughout the summer before we're officially merged? So not just like numbers of elders, but sadly, like we've got a staffing role to fill and other like big decisions that need to be made or things that come up. I'm curious how you're thinking about that.
Yeah. Mark also might want to answer this, but we, particularly with regards to staffing, we have talked about doing joint interviews. So yes, we hope to fill some staffing roles prior to the church being officially merged, and United would be involved in that as well. Sort of acting as we're, I guess, assuming that this merger should go forward, we want to work together, assuming that that's the case. Again, we're not saying it is for sure, everybody has to vote on that, we want your opinions, but we don't want to exclude anyone just because it's not officially a merger yet. Anything, either of you want to say anything more to that?
Esther and Ron remain employed.
Esther and Ron remain employed.
I just have a question about Sanctuary as an elder board, and you hire people or select people to do these. United, if you've ever been on the nominating committee lately, 90% of our church, I think, is on the board. So what happens to all of our boards?
So a couple answers to that. First, a lot of what United does is hard-coded into our bylaws. It calls out how the trustees are going to be. It calls out how the deacons are going to be. It calls out how children's education is going to be. The draft bylaws don't go into that level of detail with it, except for the elders or council, whatever you want to call it. However, it does charge the elders with the council to use their authority to stand up those boards and committees that need to be, and to document in some detail who it's going to be and what their authorities and responsibilities are going to be. So there's a general pattern. At least initially, we're just going to keep on doing all things with all people, but then we're going to consolidate. I think I can speak on behalf of Sanctuary that there's enthusiasm for the provision of deacons. It's biblical, there's great work that the United Deacons have done, and so that's a piece that we definitely want our new church to have. Exactly how the other things are going to line up is to be seen. Among the many things that merging our congregations does is that we'll be more efficient, I think, in our employment of volunteers, and maybe not every member of United will have to serve on a board or a committee. The bylaws just charge the council with figuring out who's going to serve, with nominating elders and with soliciting volunteers and appointing people to the boards and committees. Now, if the council wants to find a nominating committee and do a process sort of like what United has done over the years, whether they want to do it among themselves, that's left to the council to figure out. And whatever it is they work up, they should document and publish to people so folks know what the process is. Is that
When
it?
you use the word council, you mean elder board, is that what that means?
Yes.
Okay.
Interchangeable terms.
So,
Thank you.
well, interchangeable, but I had to choose one. I will tell you, it was entertaining to draft these things, but you could argue every word.
Yeah.
I chose council, so that's what it's going to be. Unless there's violent objection.
I can't remember which one we chose, so I just will probably say both all the time. Other council, I mean, the same thing.
Well, to be more precise, the council is composed of the elders, the lay members, and the minister, senior pastor, if you will. That together forms the council.
No, that's right. Very technical, but yes. I will try to remember that. Anyways, next. Who's next? See that?
So we vote and say, everybody votes yes, we're going to merge. So what happens right after the merger? I mean, how do we know we're merged?
A big part is the clerk.
T-shirts.
Before we merged, we consulted an attorney who was an expert in this kind of thing, so that in addition to the sort of emotional and spiritual bonds we feel with each other, we're on a sound legal basis. Part of that, as Amy referred earlier, or maybe with Mark, we file these articles of incorporation with the state that affirms that we're a legal entity. But once these votes are all taken, then hopefully and confident, the various legal steps that we have to make, the disaffiliation process is exactly right with respect to whether votes are taken. And we say one vote. It may be several votes for United. There are really several things to determine. One is the disaffiliation, one is the merger with Sanctuary, and another is the disposition of the property. And I've yet to figure out whether that's going to be one vote or three, but however we do it, we'll make it clear to everyone what it all means.
And then also, we'll have a new name. But I'm going to have, Bob, do you have anything to add from a legal perspective? Okay, great. Bob has graciously taken on the task of talking to a lawyer that specializes in this sort of church document merger, not corporate, okay.
Corporate nonprofit.
So Bob is the person to ask questions to about that.
I was wondering when we vote, what is the number that we're looking for? Like, is it just like above 50%? Yes, we're merged. Is it 2/3? Is there another number? Like, how many people? I mean, not saying that we're not buying it, but like, ideally, we would want it to be a critical mass, not just like 50%. So what are we kind of looking for there?
Both churches will have their own process, and I think those numbers might actually be different for both churches. So you could speak to United's numbers. I wish that Steve Harris would. Supermajority, so 2/3 or 3/4? 2/3. 2/3 for sanctuary.
That actually has two different numbers. So we recently amended our property disposal or disposition provision that calls for 2/3 majority. But the dissolution of the church and the merging with sanctuary, it's not addressed in our existing documents, but changing the existing documents requires a 3/4 majority. So I'm anticipating that the disaffiliation and the merger votes would require 3/4.
So I haven't read the documents, and I've been sending the documents, but we are doing life together. And Mark, you talked about like hospitality being this like shared mission and goal, and I'm just wondering, where are other areas where you see this idea of, so not, we're all talking about values and like keeping things open there, but like where you see shared mission and goal and like the hearts of the churches aligning?
That's a great question. I was about, as a teacher, you're a teacher, I was about to answer, it's in the syllabus. No, it's a great question. I mean, I think, yeah, so this, going back to our origin story of PATH needing a space and United saying, come use our space, I think that actually is instructive for me on the heart of both churches. United has a fantastic history of supporting overseas missions, which is not something that Sanctuary has a history of. But I'm excited for them. I think that's beautiful, and I'm thrilled that that's going to be part of our budget moving forward, is the support of overseas missions work. Sanctuary has tended to focus fairly locally in our ministries. We've thought of like ministry outside of the church, whether that's through the Green Bean Path or other avenues. United has an outreach team. This is something that they think about as well. I think an ongoing kind of stopping and starting conversation for Sanctuary has been, after the Green Bean, what does that look like for us now? We're a different church than we were planted 20 years ago, but we still carry this value of engaging our neighbors, our immediate neighbors, in service and with the good news of the gospel. So there's not, I don't have like a particular, this is what that's going to look like. I just know that that's a shared heart.
Yeah. Like, what are you seeing that's already there that you're excited about? Like, because we are doing community life together, but there's...
Yeah. I mean, some of this, we had a congregational meeting in Sanctuary a number of years ago, and someone asked like, okay, are we here?
Yeah.
Like, we were at Taproot, we were in 85th and Greenwood. That's not that far from here, but this is a different neighborhood. And we were able to answer, no, we're here. And so the questions we're interested in asking are, what does it look like for us to be the church here? So maybe I'm not answering specifically, but I think we are interested in asking that question now all together. So there's things, Sharon has facilitated a wonderful relationship with the Tiny House Village. I hope we continue that. I hope we grow that. And I know there's challenges with turnover on whoever's leading it, but there's some neighbors right there that I think if there's ways we can come together and more robustly love those neighbors. That's one small area, but those are things that I think about. Did I approach answering the question?
Yeah, I'm less worried about like, oh, we're going to do these specific, or I'm not worried at all.
Yeah.
But just that excitement of coming together, and not just like, oh yeah, we're doing life together already.
Yes.
Like,
Okay, so here.
I had roommates, and I didn't just be like,
Yeah.
I guess we're doing life together, let's get married.
So I talked about, maybe this answers the question. I hope I understand. I talked about how it's clear that both churches value hospitality, but there are certain barriers to that right now that have to do with the fact that we are still functioning as two churches in meaningful ways. I think this is both an invitation and I think like a challenging invitation to truly be hospitable to one another. I think that's an invitation that's part of this process that I think is glorious, and God will meet us in this, and it will be beautiful. And I would be lying if I said it would just be blissfully easy. I think there's parts of this that are going to stretch us in the way in which we are going to have to be intentional about not thinking of ourselves as United and Sanctuary, but as whatever the new name is. And the name is just, that's just a signifier, right? The name actually is a meaning thing. It's how we actually treat each other. Do we really treat each other as members of one church? Do we really see each other that way? Or do we see each other as like, oh, that's kind of that group from that other church? So that maybe is an invitation that is a challenge too, that we're going to have to embrace one another as members of the same church. Did I get close? Okay.
Can I, sorry. I'm gonna try to ask your question maybe a little bit more bluntly. It's what do you see that is making us better together? Like, because we've talked about, oh, are we better together? I'm not saying we're not, and clearly the hospitality aspect is one way that we are better together. What are the other ways that we are better together than we are two separate churches? I think is part of your question.
I will say one thing, and then I'll give it to Ralph. I would say that the hospitality is one of the biggest things that I see as better together, and I know that we're harping on that, but I think that our two churches, like Mark was saying, haven't been able to be as hospitable, and we can hopefully be more efficient and pool resources, time, talent, treasure, and that will make us better together, growing the kingdom of God. Like, I think that, yes, two thoughts. The other thought is, we do life together very well at Sanctuary. That is definitely something that has drew our family to this church. I have witnessed that a lot with United. You guys do life together well as well. And so I think that's where Mark was saying, like, this coming together, it might have to be intentional of like blending these two families almost. But I think that in doing that, yes, it will stretch us. We have, at the merger team, talked a lot about how United is very structured and Sanctuary is not so structured. And so it will stretch us both in ways as we come together to do that. But I think that is definitely an act of submission on both parties, and I think that is something that God is calling us to. Another train of thought, but lost it, so I'm going to hand it.
So at the risk of saying the same thing in a slightly different way, in the 20 plus years that I've been with United, we've perceived something of a tension between shepherding and outreach. And shepherding is just a term for taking care of ourselves and each other, bringing up our children in the church, spiritually developing ourselves, becoming stronger Christians, and enjoying each other in fellowship. Whereas the outreach piece is, as we're called, to share this good thing that we have with other people, folks around us who, in my expressing of it, need Jesus in their lives. And so I think, as been described, we are better able to do both of those things if we come together and fill this space with worshipers, people coming from both our churches, and I think new people coming in. And certainly I would perceive, and I think most of you have as well, what Mark pointed out. People come and visit us, and then if they're thinking maybe of joining us, puzzled by what it is. So getting beyond this and all the energy that has gone into thinking and praying and trying to work out this merger thing, put that behind us and let us get on with God's work here. I think we can do it. Maybe Jan has some idea.
One thing that I see us working better together right now is the intergenerational aspect. When we first came to this church, we didn't have children, and then we had children, and there were grannies and there were aunties and all of this, and it was a great value because we didn't have family here. So this church body became our family and our children's family. And I grieved when we were all old. And I see the influence of the children and the chance to be involved in their lives, talking with them, just seeing them grow, I think is something that makes us better together. And I'm no longer a child. I don't know how they feel about me, but I think that's one way that we are right now better together.
Thanks.
I feel I'm a little uniquely positioned to be able to shed my experience on this situation since I've been coming here for a little over a year now, and the way that I've been embraced by both congregations in such a warm and hospitable way. And my view of seeing you as two is really narrow, because I've been thinking of you as one since I started my internship, though I know in my head that's not true. You're the body of Christ, you're God's people. And as I began to meditate on the reality of being here in a church where there's two churches actually merging, I was struck with God's work at bringing together two groups of people who needed each other. Because as Jan echoed, there is something so incredibly important and beautiful about having a church full of gray hairs and babies at the same time. We as a culture tend to gravitate to dividing ourselves off into our peer groups instead of recognizing that we need each other, no matter what stage of life that we're in. God uses us as a people to one another. We're a gift to each other if we're operating with God's presence and spirit. And so I just want to affirm, as someone who is new, who has been here a year, that my perception is that God has been doing something incredible between these two communities. And it has been an honor to be here and watch it unfold. And I'm so glad that I get to be a part of it.
Thanks, John.
Real quick. So that, all of this is good. I'll be brief. I think fundamentally underneath all of this, there's this sense that this is something that God's been doing. So we can list out different things, practical things, and I'll do that in a second. But fundamentally underneath, I think we're trying to be attentive to how God is building His church. And given all of the evidence of churches splitting, the fact that there's two churches considering a merger feels like a work of God. And then I'll speak super practically to this question. Sanctuary needs a place to meet, and United needs a pastor and a worship leader and a youth director. So there's some ways very tangibly and practically in which coming together, we meet some needs that the other has. Those are not the primary reasons, but they're also not absent. I'll give this to Clay.
When Path moved over here, Mark is right, we were very welcome. And at that point, the Lord said to me, wouldn't it be great if? Yes, it would be great if.
This is a practical business type question, and I'm a finance person. As we merge, as we do the legal parts of the merger, how how do we put together the finances of both churches? I'm just asking.
Seats are standing.
So in reviewing the budgets that both United and Sanctuary have, there's line items in Sanctuary's budget for rent that appear as income in United's budget. Those kind of disappear, right? There's also line items that I believe are supporting staff that United supports some Sanctuary staff. I'm not entirely sure about those, but essentially all the incomes get combined and all the outcomes get combined, with the exception of the rent piece where that would just pass through. So that's the intent of how we merge the budgets for the first 6 months of the combined year, and then in, I believe it'd be June of 26, we would start creating a new budget for the joint operation.
Donna.
Just, I don't know if you're aware, but there is an actual separate account of the benevolence fund. Just so you're aware, when you're mixing all those, that was not in the budget. It's separate in the budget.
Perfect. And Sanctuary also has a benevolence fund. It's combined into our budget, but yeah, the intent is to combine and merge everything that's done with both congregations, and then any internal changes of money just get brought in. Yep.
I just want to say I'm excited. And I'm remarkably hopeful. There's a pragmatism that I see in this, and a hopefulness that I see. And it's a privilege to start to see our children shepherded by a whole congregation here. And I just want to say thank you to Mark and Amy and Ralph and the teams. And that's just the work and hours and hours that gone into this. Thank you for your leadership. My question back to you, what do you most need from our congregations in the next 3 to 6 months?
Read the documents. And chat with us if you have thoughts or questions that we can continue to pray about as a merge, elder council, board, church, things we need to bring to everybody. I would say that that's one. Dawn, I was going to let you know, or everybody, that there is a link in one of the 3 documents, don't ask me which one it is, but there's a graphic that shows the budgets. It's very helpful. I have looked at it, but it's a link in one of those, so that would be helpful as well.
Question 12 of 25.
Question 12 on the 25 things, the 25 issues to discuss. Question? Yeah. I'm getting my steps in today.
I've just been wondering, since the 2 congregations are voting separately, and I don't anticipate it happening, but what if one congregation votes to merge and the other votes not to merge? Or even the disassociation would work into that question too.
Yes, as Steve said, we will come to that when we get to it.
Yeah, I think the short answer is that we would move forward. We would reevaluate where we're at. Our sense is that this is the direction both churches are heading, but if the votes reveal otherwise, we would not. I mean, it'll take an absolute affirmation on all of those questions from both churches in order to.
Okay, I have neglected Sarah's comment, so I'm coming back here.
No, I just wanted to call out in my way that I like to call out the emotional side of all of these things, is that to call this not an erasure of the stories that we bring, that our churches bring things that have made us who we are, whether it's decades, much longer than one versus the other, but we all bring something to this. And I think it's that trepidation that people do bring to continue forward sort of the marriage as a metaphor, is you have this fear right before that you are going to lose the things that make you you. Do they blend? Do they go away? Do they get richer? there's a lot that you don't know as you take that step forward. And I think there are things too that Sanctuary is still contemplating that was the place that I came from, that there was almost a pride and an ethos in being this nomadic church that didn't have a home that was different, and how you reconcile that in sitting in a building that if you grew up in a church looked like the place you grew up in. Those are things that we're still struggling with as our ethos, that we're trying to figure out who we are as we move forward. You guys united and bringing other things forward, right? And I think that we're still learning from each other, that we can't lose those things that make us who we are, and we want to use those to propel us forward in ministries together where those different perspectives lend us to richer concepts and how we bring ourselves to our neighbors near and far. And we can't erase those. We are not pressing a restart button and all of these documents and what brings us to this moment go away. So I just wanted to say that out loud, to not say that I'm walking into this completely confident, but I still struggle with things that I think make me who I am, and I don't know what those look like newly moving forward. And certainly that is what we all bring to something like a marriage. And I don't know, I love, if anybody has heard me, friends like Shankar Vedant and his like social sciences on NPR that he does on Saturday mornings. And there was this concept of, like entities merging with both in relationships and business and how they get richer. It was sometime in the last couple of months. And how it is that like you almost, he was comparing it in relationships, but how two come together and you almost take on the power of the person you're with and you become more than you are in this sense of yourself, that things you have what you do, and when you join with someone else, whether that be a marriage or something else, you actually feel like you can do the things that your partner is good at, and you become more than yourself, even if they aren't skills that are yours, and it gives you this more expansive concept of what you can do. And so applying that to our churches, that is, I think, when our wanderings through all these conversations, this pervasive sense that that's what we're being called to. So.
Thanks, Sarah. That was really cool. I'm telling you, make me run for it. Didn't go to the soccer games, so.
My brother Tim just pointed out, there is a comment under in the live stream. Margie Alfieri says, is it imperative that we affiliate with a denomination? Aren't non-denominational churches independent? Pardon my ignorance.
Rock's going to answer this question.
We have a plan to seek someone to affiliate with. That's not written down, it's not a has to, but you know, it's biblical. I think I actually preached on this about 6 months ago. Being affiliated with something larger gives you some stability through the rough parts. As much as we love Mark and Summer, they're not going to be with us forever. So there's personnel turnover. Being tied to a larger spiritual organization helps us deal with that. We feel confident that we know what is right spiritually and in other terms, but finding a larger organization to sort of deal with these issues, not just by ourselves, but together with others, feels right. There's certain institutional church things that are done better as part of a large organization. So, I don't disagree with Margie. I feel good about ourselves today, that we could go for some time not affiliated, but for the longer term. And I would like to think that the church that we are hoping to form is not just for one generation or for one season, but rather is going to persist for a long time. And I think to be associated with the denomination better equips us to do that going forward.
Can I add something to that, Alan? One of the things I think about being affiliated with a denomination, to also answer that question, is when things are going good, it doesn't seem very important. When something goes bad, especially very, very bad, it really, really helps to have outside church visitors. In the CRC tradition, I don't know where we'll end up, but other pastors, other elders come in and help you sort out. If, God forbid, there was a case of abuse in our church, having a denominational structure where there's a safe church person to come in and help us out, like those worst case scenarios are where denominational resources come into play. And where we can offer that help to other churches. So, like, when things are great, it doesn't seem important. When things are bad, it's really, really helpful.
Thanks, Jenny. I don't know. Back to the church, man. You guys are liking it today.
Speaking about denominations, since Mark's from the Presbyterian background, I think we should look into the Evangelical Presbyterian Church in the United States. They're very inclusive in their doctrine. I've looked at it and think that'd be a good fit for everybody. That's my opinion.
Thanks, Matt. We are excited to explore, Lord willing, the denomination committee, and I probably won't be on that. But I know that whoever's leading it is going to have a good time. I shouldn't have come all the way up here because I feel like somebody from the back is going to have a question. No? No? Going once? Okay. So this is the first conversation. We invite you to have more conversations. Yes, we're very excited about people reading the documents and then bringing up topics for us. Jan, you got a question? Okay. We will kind of announce where there are like different, maybe some office hours for time, that people can just be there to drop in. But again, if you reach out to any of your elders who want to talk to you, Bob Cundy is going to close in prayer.
He goes for lots of walks. She always likes walking.
Ooh, I really do. I really like walking and talking. I do have a dog, but I can leave him at home, maybe. So Bob's going to close in prayer, and then Sanctuary will have their next meeting in 2 weeks.
Thank you all for your participation and attention. Lord, we are thankful for these brothers and sisters. We are thankful for this time to consider that we are hoping to be better together. And it seems to be your hand that is guiding us in this way. Please help us find the time to read all the material that has been prepared. Please help us to ponder and pray so that your will be done. And thank you for blessing us for so many decades in so many ways. We know that you have been with us. We know that you are with us. And we know that you will be with us in the chapters to come. And all God's people said, Amen.
If you would like a hard copy of the documents, we do have some printed out.